just landed at a ranch at Corona, New Mexico. The rancher turned it over to the Air Force. Rancher W.W. Brazil was the man who discovered the saucer.
What I thought was a star began coming in my direction at a very rapid rate of speed.
The unidentified object, which some sources thought might be a blimp, moved slowly down the Pacific coast from Santa Monica and disappeared south of Long Beach.
I saw a UFO, and it went down the river, turned right at the United Nations, turned left, and then down the river.
UFO Classified. UFO Classified. No more plausible deniability. Fact, fiction, or the truth. You decide. And now, the new voice of the high desert, the hostess of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes.
Welcome to UFO Classified. I'm always happy to be here with my people on Friday nights and to look into chat and to get messages from people all over the world talking about the show and how groundbreaking it is. And I want to just throw this out there. There really, to my knowledge, other than Greg Bishop, is not another show that you will hear where the show is hosted by somebody who actually dedicates hours upon hours, more than a full-time job. Let me just throw this out there, to actually researching the topic, researching the people involved, and getting the information out to you. The rest of the people doing this are simply just radio show DJs that are, using this as a means to make a living, and that's great, but there is a difference. And each week I strategically bring you things that will educate you and give you a good footing so you're able to make rational and good decisions and steer clear from all of the utter nonsense that we are seeing, especially right now. I want to mention the fact that right now, more than I have seen it since I've publicly been in the field, there is a very deliberate attempt to try to muddy the waters and also discredit people that are trying to make a difference, including some people that are my colleagues. So I encourage you to be smart. I know that you are. That's what I love about all of you guys. If somebody is hiding behind anonymity, then chances are that might be for a reason that isn't in our own best interest. So make sure that you can vet your sources, make sure that you're communicating with people that are doing this for the right reasons. And I highly encourage each and every one of you to really stay off Facebook. In a majority of these groups, they're a time wasting. They're, in all likelihood, some of these groups are gathering information, personal information, and unfortunately we all give away way too much on Facebook, but just be on guard. This is important. This is serious. I take this subject seriously, just like my two guests this evening, and we want to see something productive come out of this. After 60 years of disinformation and campaigns against good researchers in the subject, we're all tired of it, and we deserve to get to the bottom of it. So with that said, you can go to UFO Classified or ericalukes.com. I will be updating both websites, and I'm working on some great things. If you want to sponsor the show and support good research and also archiving, then please do that. I appreciate you very, very much, and I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you. So also, one more thing before I get to my guest this evening, I want to just say a little bit. I was very saddened, like all of us were, when Stanton Friedman passed away. I had to take some time, and I'm taking some time, and I will be doing a show about him, a good show about him, to remember all of his work and the significant part that he played in specific researchers' lives, some of the controversies, and I want to do it right, and I will be doing that, so you can look for that in the next month. And I'm excited. It'll be good. Stanton was a very dear person to me, and it's always hard when you lose someone like that. And so my blessings, my prayers, and love go out to his family and Kathleen Martin. And there you have that. So my guests this evening, I've got two of them, and they are two powerful and strong women, and I love seeing that in this field. We need more of that. We need to support each other. Linda Miller Costa has a BA in psychology from Case Western Reserve University and a library science master's from the University of Maryland. After a career in scientific research and publishing in Washington, D.C., she is currently at Lemoyne College Library in Syracuse, New York. She is co-author of the UFO Sightings Desk Reference, United States of America, 2001 to 2015. And I have to say, this is a remarkable undertaking that should not be overlooked. You should absolutely add this beautiful desk reference to your library. And this is the kind of research we need to be doing. I have to say, Linda, how come we've never talked before?
Well, one thing, I do have a full-time day job, so I'm not as readily available.
All right, fine.
Also, Cheryl's got the show business background. And quite honestly, through my career, et cetera, my problem always has been a tendency to perhaps not be as controlled in what I say. I was brought up to be very honest and very firm in my convictions, and so as a result, I want to make sure that I don't say anything that will get myself or Cheryl in trouble. So, but I admire you and I trust you, so I'm hoping that I won't put my foot in it. So,
you know what, you won't, and I respect both of you so much, and we're all here together. And I as you know, and as you've seen, I know Cheryl's seen, you get into this subject, and there are people that are really not nice. And I think there's a deliberate effort to undermine people. And then this subject just attracts people that aren't necessarily stable sometimes. But I've been very fortunate with my radio show and my listeners that I will tell you I have the kindest and most supportive listenership in the world. And they all of us want good information, and we support people that are bringing that to the table.
Well, I spent 35 years in Washington, D.C., and I worked at the National Academy of Sciences and the Environmental Protection Agency, and actually NASA for about 6 months. And I can tell you that, everything everybody says about Washington, which is if you want a friend, get a dog, is absolutely true. It's, the epicenter on the planet of backstabbing and self-promotion. And I did survive. I learned a few tricks. I consider myself a somewhat good spin doctor. But I was thinking earlier today, I was because I knew I was coming on this show, and my background is environmental research, and I was trying to get some insight into my own thought processes of why am I doing this UFO stuff? Well, why is it I care about this? And I realized it goes back to my time at the Academy. I was working there in the 1980s, and that was the time of the ozone hole and, Ronald Reagan and people calling the environmentalists tree huggers, and, that we were all pagans that worshipped, trees and plants and bugs and stuff, and didn't care that, humans would lose money if they took care of these environmental problems. And the scientists I worked with were Nobel prize-winning scientists. These were very, very smart people. And what we did there was usually the federal government would have some kind of issue that scientific issue that they needed somebody to look at and give some advice. And these were usually very hot and controversial issues. And if the government did the research, they were subject to the sunshine laws. And so any committee meetings they had would have to be open to the public. And so, like any good, research or organization, you want to have nice, juicy discussions and not have pesky reporters and citizens involved. So they would hand it over to the National Academy of Sciences which was chartered by President Lincoln back in the Civil War to advise the nation on scientific issues. And they would get together these committees of volunteer scientists, and then they would pose, okay, this is what the problem is, and these scientists would then give their expert opinions and put together a report. They would have meetings. Really nice meetings. They'd go to like Woods Hole in the summer, and but they would have these large committee meetings. And I was on the research associates that helped support them, helped support the publishing and the research of the final report, and then it was published by the National Academy Press. So the one that I was involved with, where I worked part-time while I was going to library school, was on environmental epidemiology. And as I've explained in some of the UFO meetings I've gone to, that this is sort of the genesis of our book. Environmental epidemiology is a medical study of like looking where diseases are and then trying to predict where more than would be. Like we had a measles clusters in New York City is the one that probably people are aware of right now. Environmental epidemiology was this new idea that looking at diseases that could be caused by toxins. This was the era of Love Canal and people finding these, brownfields and toxic waste dumps and people getting sick. So it says, well, let's look at the scientific validity of finding people that were getting these diseases that could be caused by exposure to toxins, things like childhood leukemia. And if you have a lot of kids in one area getting childhood leukemia, that's not normal. It's usually because there's some kind of toxin that's causing them to get ill. And so they were looking at whether this using epidemiology for an environmental purpose was valid or not. And when Cheryl started writing the Syracuse New Times column about UFOs, and she started doing a couple statistics articles using the Newfork and MUFON statistics, and they were well received. But I kept on looking. It says there's all this data in these databases, and nobody's been using it. I mean, we're in the age of big data. Everything is look. That's what, like Facebook. They're collecting data because you can make money from it, et cetera. And so I says, why has nobody used all this data that's available, that everybody was just looking? They all like the stories. Everybody wants to hear about the story. They don't want to look at the statistics can be very boring. Cheryl calls it that our book has all the charm of a bank ledger, but which is true, but the point is that if you looked at where these things were being cited, would that not give us information that we didn't already have? And it's looking for the trends and the clusters like you would for epidemiology. Why is it that we're seeing all these, sightings at one place and not at another? No one has ever really looked at that. So this I felt was something that was important. And then today when I was deciding, well, why is it I got into UFOs? And then I realized that back in the 1980s, these scientists were telling us, okay, we've got these environmental problems. There's this climate change, these chemicals and the things that we're putting into the atmosphere. It's making people sick, but it's also change the climate. And says, you've got 20 or 30 years to do something about this. And if you don't do something about it, it's going to be too late. Well, here we are, I'm old, it's 20 or 30 years later, and guess what? We got, bad weather, and we have, droughts, and we have tornadoes where we didn't used to have them, and, it goes on. And I thought, well, this is the same thing with the UFOs. Here, the scientists were looking at something and said, okay, this is happening. We can show that it's happening. And, you've got to pay attention and you've got to do something. You only have so much time. Well, now we have all, through our book and through the research we've done, we've shown that there's people all over are seeing these UFOs or, what UAPs, whatever you want to call them, all over the world. And people have got to pay attention. They're here for a reason. And I know as a Tom Conwell, has said that a lot of the places the sightings are is where toxic waste dumps and pollution, et cetera. And I can't help putting it together that, maybe they're here because of what we're doing to the planet. And, if we don't do something about it, they're going to. And
you mentioned
do we
Tom.
want to lose control? Yeah, Tom Conwell, yeah.
Thank you very much, because I was just thinking about him and his work and all, but what the three of you are doing it's very, very important. And you're right, if we don't take control of what we're doing and start taking, we're just not an accountable society anymore, and that is really, it's heartbreaking. And I am sorry to cut you off there because you were in the middle of a beautiful, beautiful statement.
Yeah, so the last sentence was that, that if we don't take charge of this problem, beings from outside the planet might take charge of it for us because they don't want to see us. We have to remember that we're not the only ones who live on this planet. There are other beings besides human beings. And we don't have a right to trash the whole earth for all the other species in life forms that are on this planet. And that some people consider a religious statement, but I'm sorry, that's how I feel. And, it's just, Dan Quayle back in the 80s, one of the scientists was telling the story about how, Dan Quayle was saying, well, if the ozone layer, if it's causing problems for people, we can just buy sunglasses for everybody. And the Dr. Burris was laughing and says, what are we going to do? Put sunglasses on the deer and the rabbits and the squirrels? It's the arrogance that, well, humans are the only ones that matter, and our money is more important than our health or the health of everyone else that is on this planet.
And amen. Ken said amen in chat room, and I absolutely think that as well. And it is interesting to see, when you get into quote unquote ufology or whatever we want to call it, that there are people with some very I'm trying to think of a good way to say this, but people that have very specific political and religious belief systems, and those belief systems don't necessarily lend themselves to creating a better planet. And it makes it difficult, for people that are trying to get to the truth, because I think there's a lot of influence from some of these extreme viewpoints, factions.
Well, a lot of it comes down to there are people out there that think scientific facts are subject to religious belief. And I'm sorry, it's a sign of our times, but the fact is a fact, and if something's been proved according to scientific protocols, you get exposed to enough of one chemical, you'll get this particular, type of lung disease, et cetera, and that's a fact. And saying, well, I don't believe it, I'm sorry. It's the same thing with the measles, it says, well, if I don't vaccinate, I won't get the measles. Well, it doesn't work that way. And so I think that I'm an American. My family has been here since the 1600s. I'm proud of this country. I'm very liberal, or at least middle of the road. And I truly believe in the separation of church and state. And science and scientific issues that are being decided for the good of the public and for the good of the planet should not be influenced by anyone's religion. That's just... It just doesn't work that way.
Thank you.
And we're doing the same dithering that we did with climate change, and it's just there are the abductions or the experiencers or whatever, that all these people are being touched in ways that they can't explain, or that may be a link to ETs or whatever. And it's like, how is it that millions of people are experiencing this stuff and the government's not paying any attention, doesn't seem to be paying any attention or doing anything about it? How is that not being made safe as a citizen, that your country and your government and your police force and everybody else is not protecting you from being abducted out of your bed? It's just... there's a lot of objective things that can be measured, including the things like the data we're showing, and that's why I felt the data was so important. Is that this is something that can be quantified, and it will maybe help remove a little bit of the emotion out of it. Because numbers, people will believe numbers when they won't necessarily believe stories.
Right. And I think that is the way things should be done. And I think that we should all strive for that. And I wonder why, especially now, I was mentioning at the beginning of the show, we're seeing so much, we're seeing such a big push, with creationism, with some of the demonic agendas, some of these things that, again, go back to belief systems and not tangible facts. And that's where things get blurry and dangerous, and it doesn't help anybody to go down that road. We need to just look at the facts, and that's what you're doing.
Well, as the spin doctor in me would say, it's always follow the money.
Yes,
if you follow anything down to when people are trying to control what other people are doing or how they're using their resources, there's always money involved somewhere. And it's really sad, because I don't think money is the ultimate value, because money is good for, it can be used to buy things, but there are people that have obscene amounts of money, and it's just like, how many yachts can you buy? How many $40,000 backpacks can you buy, et cetera, And it's just people need to breathe and have clean air and take care of their children. And, it's just, why are we... I don't know. It's very confusing to me, And the thing about the UFO community, and it's just like the politics back in Washington or any place. Anytime you've got human beings together, they're gonna fight and they're gonna gossip and they're gonna snipe at each other, and you would think that the UFO community has enough problems with criticism from outside that they would try to control the infighting. But unfortunately, there is bigotry and there is sexism, and I've experienced some of that. And it's just really sort of sad, it really is. We're running out of time. We're running out of time.
We are, and that is very, very clear, and I love that, and I knew that you were going to be a kindred spirit, so I'm really happy that you have the integrity and the fortitude to say things like this. This is really important, and this is where we need to focus. There's so many other questions, and we've got 2 minutes to break that I want to ask you, and I think I'm going to have you back again and again and again, just so you know, so prepare yourself.
Okay.
But tell everybody where we can find your beautiful contribution to research.
Well, it's the book, I guess.
Right.
It's also, I'm sort of, a lot of it, I'm sort of behind the scenes because like I said, Cheryl is sort of the face of the organization, and we actually have a company called Dragon Lady Media LLC, and I'm the majority partner, so technically I'm the boss. So as her editor, and the book can be found on Amazon. She's waving a sign at me, and the UFO sightings desk reference. My contribution is as a librarian. One of the things we're taught in school and that we practice is asking questions. And so a lot of mine is sort of the devil's advocate of when she starts to go down a certain path. Well, what about this? And
I love that. I want to talk more about that because I think your relationship is amazing. I am Erica Lukes, and I am here with Linda Miller Costa. We will be right back.
Stand by. This is UFO Classified with Erica Lukes.
Erica Lukes.
The phone lines are open now at 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio. More UFO Classified.
UFO Classified
with Erica Lukes on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. After this.
Toxins are everywhere, from the air we breathe to the food we eat and the water we drink. In a world where 80,000 known toxins and heavy metals threaten our very existence, how are you going to protect yourself and your loved ones? Introducing Pure Body Extra Strength, the world's first colloidal zeolite that helps trap and remove toxins as well as heavy metals from your body that are messing with your memory, clarity, sleep, and focus. Don't just take our word for it or the testimonials from our thousands of happy customers. Check out the hundreds of articles and case studies on the National Institute of Health website proving zeolite's powerful ability to remove toxins. For a limited time, listeners to KCOR will receive 10% off their first order. To get started, go to trypurebody.com and enter promo code RADIO10. Again, that's trypurebody.com. Toxic junk is all around us, but now you can take back control of your health and protect yourself by detoxing with Pure Body Extra Strength. You'll be on your way to sleeping better, thinking more clearly, and feeling more energetic. Go to trypurebody.com right now and get started today.
Now, broadcasting in digital HD radio.
What is our reality? An ever-evolving concept? An individual experience? Or just life? Tune in Saturdays at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern for Our Reality, hosted by Violetta Vrankovich.
You guys ready for this?
Come join the movement each and every week as we explore a range of topics, from the ordinary to the extraordinary. Violetta will emerge your consciousness with unique concepts and guests, taking you to places no other show has ever dared to go.
Carefully designed to stimulate the mind.
Our Reality, hosted by Violetta Vrankovich. Live Saturdays at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. Exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. Our Reality. Changing the world, one topic at a time. At a time. At a time. At a time. At a time.
We interrupt to bring you this.
Would you like to advertise on KCOR Digital Radio Network?
This is what I'm talking about.
At a fraction of the cost of traditional radio advertising, why not?
Tell them the good news.
Whether you need to promote your next book, product, or service, we can customize a package for just about any budget.
Finally, there is hope for the hopeless.
Why limit yourself to a tiny local market when KCOR can brand you to the world?
Here's all you do.
Visit KCORradio.com or contact our sales department by email at saleskcorradio.com.
We want it now!
See the difference with us by letting us work for you.
This ain't reality TV!
The KCOR Digital Radio Network.
Are you ready to go?
It's showtime!
You're listening to the KCOR Digital Radio Network.
Break this up.
Broadcasting from the heart of Las Vegas, Nevada.
Their base is so large it has to draw most of its power from the nearby nuclear fusion plant.
The future of radio is here and now.
You're listening to
UFO Classified with Erica Lukes, where the truth isn't hidden beneath the black lines of a Sharpie.
That's the craziest thing I've ever heard.
To be on with Erica, call 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio.
Radio Contact.
Share your thoughts on the show on Twitter by using hashtag KCOR. Or head over to the live chats at KCORradio.com.
The audience goes nuts!
And now, your host of UFO Classified.
Are you ready?
Erica Lukes.
Erica Lukes.
Welcome back. I'm Erica Lukes. Happy to be here on KCOR and see all of my friends in chat. Thank you for reaching out to me. And if you have the Science Channel, on Thursday evenings, you can watch NASA's Unexplained Files. I am in this new season, the new second season of the Travel Channel's UFOs, The Lost Evidence, will make its debut in July, and I'm looking forward to that. So just keep me posted, give me your feedback. It's fun to be able to get out there in a way that I can hopefully interact with people and try to give them important information and information from people that are digging behind the scenes and really sacrificing a lot of time, a lot of money, and taking a great deal of abuse because they are choosing to do this. My guest this evening is one of those people who has done remarkable work. If you don't know about the UFO Sightings Desk Reference, the United States of America 2001 to 2014, this book presents data and analysis for 100,000 plus sightings of unidentified objects reported by individuals during the first 15 years of the 21st century. This is where it's at, the work that Tom Conwell has done as well. This is what we need to be doing. And when I joined MUFON and was state director, I often wondered why people weren't doing this when we had the data. And so, Linda, welcome back. Thank you so much. You've done a great deal of work in your life, and I'll be posting your biography, your credentials to my guest tonight, or to my people in chat. But I'm stunned at what you've done and how brave you are. And I love that. I think that totally rocks, and it gives me, that kind of lifts me up, because, we each go through some of these things, and sometimes we feel like we're so isolated, but we're not. And so I'm just happy. I'm happy that we are talking tonight. So you had mentioned, how important it is to separate religion from facts, and also you mentioned your relationship with your significant other, who is a beautiful woman, and the work that you've done. But I want to go back a little bit to the fact, to the beginnings of how you specifically, because obviously UFO research wasn't necessarily your bag, but you found the environmental importance of things, kind of a connection for that. How did you really get that final push? And was that from Cheryl?
Well, actually, I did know something about UFOs before I even met Cheryl. In fact, when I was in junior high, I had a book called Project Blue Book, so it was not completely unaware of the UFO phenomena. Also, I had a girlfriend I lived in Cleveland, Ohio, and her brother had gone fishing early one morning, like at dawn, up by Lake Erie. And as we know, Lake Erie and the Great Lakes is a pretty hotbed for UFO sightings. Well, he and his friend were fishing, and they saw a UFO come out over the lake. And he had just gotten out of the Navy, and so he knew what a ship in airplane looked like, et cetera, and what didn't. He went and reported it to the Air Force, and they debriefed him and told him to never speak about it again. So I had that exposure back in mid-1970s that they were covering up these things. And I knew that this man was not lying. He had no reason to lie. So also when I was in Washington, D.C., I was a member of the International Fortean Organization. I don't know if you're aware of that group, but these were like people like John Keel and a lot of other speakers. What's Fort's name? My first name I can never remember. Anyway, Charles Fort. Charles Fort was a scientist, from the 1900s, and he studied. Was looking for odd scientific phenomena, things like rains of frogs and aerial phenomena and all that kind of thing. And so this organization, this was pre-internet days, and in those days, if you wanted to hear about these kinds of things, you had to go to conferences. And Charles, his book was the Damn Data, and so we would get together and bring speakers in, et cetera. And one of the speakers they brought in was John Podesta, who was the head of the scientific advisory board for the Washington, for the president.
Wow.
Yeah. So, he came to one of the meetings. So I saw some, one of the speakers, I can't remember who showed it, but he showed some NASA footage that was taken among one of the space shuttles. And the astronauts were in the space shuttle, just sort of, chatting with NASA, et cetera. And all of a sudden, this light came shooting out of the Earth, and then some ray of light fired at it, and it made a 45-degree angle turn and took off. And the astronauts were like, "What was that?" And that's what convinced me when I saw that, because that was not anything that, was of this earth. And so having seen that data, that film, from the astronauts, I was convinced there were UFOs. So later when Cheryl who's read a lot more of the books, etc., got into writing this UFO column, I already had some exposure to it, and so knew about the importance of it and also the validity of it, because I had seen with my own eyes a film that could not be anything else.
Oh, that is incredible. And I have to ask you, so what year do you remember the time frame when Podesta spoke to your group?
We didn't. I don't think he spoke to the group. He was there at one of the meetings, and I'm trying to think. This was back in the after Clinton had been elected, so it was like about maybe 2 years into his term. One of the things about librarians, there's theory that there's two ways that people find and use information. They either read it and retain it, or they know where to look for it. And I'm a very good research librarian, but unfortunately I have the sort of mind that you ask me a question, I know I have very wide knowledge, but it's very shallow. It's enough to get into the literature or to find what it is that I need to find to get you the information to answer your question. But I don't necessarily understand what I find. I just know I could get the right thing. When I was I ran the toxicology library at the EPA for 14 years. And so we'd have these scientists coming, wanting computer database searches on chemicals, et cetera. And I could spell these long names of these chemicals and find all the studies in the databases. And, occasionally they would say, oh, yeah, but this is really good study you got me. And, it's showing this, this, and this. And I just sort of get a glazed look in my eye because I didn't know what they were talking about. And I was happy that I got what they wanted. But, because of that, I would say that I've rented so much of my brain space to other people, helping them to find the information they want. So I'm not real good at remembering names and dates and that kind of thing, because I know I can always go look it up. Because I know where to find it. But when people ask, I know Cheryl's got this phenomenal memory. It just amazes me. I mean, she remembers, things from school and teachers' names, and it just so that's where one of her real strengths is, that she's really got the memory for all these the history of UFOs, et cetera. But I would have to go look it up. So all I know is it was in the Clinton administration. Okay. I think
And so who else was involved in that group?
Well, the woman running it was Phyllis Benjamin, who unfortunately died a few years ago, and she was an amazing extrovert and just had waist-length red hair and was just a power unto herself. And she did all the organizing and brought all these people in. And so a lot of it, some of it was UFOs, but that was really more, people told me, well, that's more of a MUFON thing. We really did everything from, from ghosts to like I said, strange animals and, the Crusades and the Knights Templar, that kind of stuff. So it was all over the place. Crop circles. I love crop circles. My favorite pet theory of crop circles is that it's an art contest among extraterrestrials to see who can make the most beautiful design. And they have it every summer. And then somebody wins the prize. And every time I say this to a crop circle researcher, they definitely look at me like I'm crazy. But I think it's as good as explanation as any.
I love it. And I have to say, so how in the world, because for you to be at a meeting, way back when Clinton was in office, and for Podesta to be there, I mean, that's really interesting and rather telling. So, I mean, who do you think, how did he get that invite?
Well, I mean, anybody could come, and I think you have to remember that Hillary Clinton was involved in the Rockefeller? Yeah, the Rockefeller group with the woman who's a researcher now, the redhead. Yeah, I'm sorry, she's one
It's
of
all
the
about the same time.
yeah. So anyway, so that she was involved in that, and remember that part of the rumors were that if Hillary had won, that there would have been disclosure. So I think that, and Podesta was involved in that. So I think that's all related. And he came to the Fortean Society meeting to be able to talk to the experts and see what was out there in the way of information.
And that is interesting because people want to separate the two issues. You've got UFOs or you've got the Fortean, all of this other type of stuff going on. And when you look at some of the organizations or people that are collecting all the important data, they're swooping up data that concerns all of this. Mm-hmm. So obviously there is an interest by government officials to get a whole broad swath of information.
Yes, I mean everything is connected, and it's all driven by money and power. And, so anything that might affect any of those things is of interest to the powers that be or whatever you want to call them. And I think the UFO stuff, we all know that these sightings have been going on for years, and there have been some pretty amazing incidents. And I thought one of the things I heard at a Fortean meeting that was always fascinated me was the idea that any time a Catholic priest heard in the confessional somebody say something about, UFOs or an abduction or whatever, they would notify the Vatican, and that the Vatican has an office that investigates this stuff, and that they would often, the poor parishioner would find themselves hauled to Rome to talk to this office. So I think there's a lot of people that are interested in this, and it's just a matter of, they consider the general public idiots and not capable of handling the truth, as they say. Right. And I don't agree with that. I really don't agree with that. I think that especially the American public are smarter than we give them credit for, although, that could be questionable in the last couple of years.
Well, I think the thing that's sad is that we've just been, there's so much manipulation taking place, on social media, on TV, all of these different things. And so sometimes we just have to step back and look at that for what it is and understand that, it's pretty dangerous game out there. But, when you look at what you're looking at and what you're researching, like you said, there's no emotion there. This is the data.
Well, Cheryl has had trouble. She's really, really trying to get the word out there, and especially when the book came out. And she is contacting all these, media, newspapers, etc. And in fact, she's got one of her presentations. She talks about the reactions of them. And in fact, he finally got the idea. Well, maybe instead of trying to deal with these folks that are entrenched in their prejudices, go talk to the students, the college students. I work at a college, and there's still college students are somewhat unformed, hopefully. And so she did manage to get a couple colleges. So was SUNY Albany, and did you make it to Syracuse yet? No, it hasn't made it to Syracuse yet. But SUNY Albany had her come and address a couple classes of journalism students, that maybe we can try to get the younger people to still have their minds open. You look at how the younger demographic is more open about like LGBT issues, and maybe they'd be the same way about this. But I think the thing that amazed me is these reporters, it's, one of the things they would say, well, we have more important stories to cover. And I just get gobsmacked. What's more important than beings from another planet coming and interfering with us? I'm not a Reagan fan, but even Reagan was concerned about it. I have to give him props for that. That this is, how is this not important? I just don't understand her.
Absolutely. And that's it. This is, for me, this is the most important subject that I will ever deal with. And obviously it is of critical importance to many different factions, many different governments from all over the world. In fact, it's so important that people are inserted into the subject to create discontent and to steer the narrative. And so this is important. And when you get closer to getting good information out there, the more pushback you see, and it's just really a phenomenal thing. But we'll try to do this together. I think that good things are taking place. And I want to go back. I want to talk about the desk reference and all of the sightings reports that you looked at in specific areas where they had the most activity. Where were some of the areas that were top on this list? Where was the most activity seen?
Well, I mean, we can go by states and, things like California, et cetera. But I think the thing I find intriguing is that a lot of them are around water sources, like around the Great Lakes. I mean, the first sighting that I heard of in person was in Lake Erie. And they also, in New York, they follow the Hudson River, I remember at one of the forwarding organizations meetings that they had somebody talk about how a couple of Canadian submarines followed some underwater, what do they call them, USOs, the underwater vehicles that were traveling up the St. Lawrence River, and the Canadian Navy followed them out to the Atlantic, and they just took off from underneath the water and out into the atmosphere. I said the Great Lakes, Lake Erie. Cheryl frantically writing with a Sharpie and flashing cards at me. But I think the thing that, when you ask about me personally getting involved, I will mention that I was a whistleblower down in D.C., and that's one of the reasons we left town is because I couldn't work there anymore because I was blacklisted by the federal libraries, et cetera. So when she got heavily involved in this, it was like really, do I want to go there again? I got married, changing my name, so I'm a little bit more, anonymous now than I was. And so it was a real serious personal consideration. I know I had, when I was at a meeting at the college that I work at, and we were at this, it was just sort of a social, discussion type thing. And the father asked, was there anybody that is a Catholic school, did anybody have anything good happen to them this week? And I said, well, I just had an article published in the New York Times about our research. And he said, oh, that's really great, et cetera. And after I left the meeting, I was out in the hallway with a couple of history professors that were married. And the gentleman asked me, well, what was your subject of your research? And I says, well, we did the first book on UFO sightings and did a statistical analysis. And his wife started guffawing. And I mean, she practically fell over. She just thought that was so hilarious. I had never been so insulted before in my life. I mean, it was just, I didn't know how to react. And he was trying to say, well, how did you look? He was treating it seriously, but it was just this gut, reaction that, oh, ha, 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 this is hilarious. And so some of this, I just want to be here when we get to laugh at them, which is one of my own personal motivations. Because we went to the Christmas party and everybody sort of moved away from us. So, I've been sort of shunned at work and, so there is personal repercussions, especially if you still have a job in a regular institution. So, I don't know, we'll see, but there is some abuse within the society, the UFO group and outside of it. So,
right. And that to me is all of us have been affected by that. And it is really, it's a shame, as you mentioned in the first hour, that we should all be doing this and in this for the right reasons, but yet we're not. Mm-hmm. And I think for me, that was the biggest heartbreak. It's like, oh my gosh, I joined MUFON. I thought, yes, we're going to do this. And we're all volunteering our time and taking, sacrificing personal relationships and money and all these things. And I was really hopeful that it was because it was for the greater good. And unfortunately, there are a lot of muddy waters you have to, and personality disorders and and things that you have to kind of move through. But the more you do that, and the more adept you become, and the more you see patterns and groups of people that are falling into, kind of that bullying crowd, the more hopefully we can draw attention to it and be safe and do the right thing. So I commend you. I can't imagine what both of you have been through.
Well, I think one of the things that is an important value for me is our independence. And I think that, we really try to be clear with people, that we use MUFON data and we use NUFORC data, and we're very grateful to them for allowing us to use their data. But we also, and Cheryl also does a lot of work on it, and our database is so much, it's much different than the raw data that we got from these organizations, and we are not part of them. I don't belong to MUFON, and we're independent, and the only organization I feel we belong to is the scientific community. They had this expression that I learned at the academy about the invisible college, and the invisible college is the colleagues in a particular research area, and they all belong to different, colleges and universities, et cetera, but they interact with each other. A lot of people think that, when a study is published in a scientific journal, that's the first time it appears. No, that article's been passed around among professors all over the particular subject area, whether it's science or history or whatever, and the invisible college provides support and provides, because they're all working on a mutual subject. And I think that's what's missing in the UFO communities, that they're not acting like an invisible college. They're not being supportive of each other and working towards a greater goal of improving the scientific research of UFOs.
Absolutely. But luckily, through all of this, there is a group that we're finding each other. We're going to do the right thing, and we're going to support each other, and that's the way it goes, because we care about the integrity of this. Yes. So I know we can do it, even though sometimes when I'm crying myself to sleep in my closet, it does become a bit questionable. But then, I've got, I don't know. I mean, I talk to Cheryl and I talk to so many other people, and we lift each other up and we get through some of the difficulties. And I love that. And I really, really appreciate everything that both of you have done to take an important look, the look that what you did with the UFO Desk Reference has never been accomplished before. And so first of all, congratulations.
Thank you.
And second of all, I have to encourage everybody who is listening tonight to go to Amazon and to purchase this important piece of work, because this is where it's at. You can ask Tom Conwell, who was in the chat room, and he's written 2 books. He's been on my show before talking about this and how you can analyze the data and see specific patterns. And I love it. We're going to talk more about that. I am Erica Lukes. Next hour, we have got Cheryl Costa coming up. I'm here with Linda Miller Costa right now, so stick around. Lid, this is for you. The best is yet to come.
Listen very carefully.
This is Houston. Say again, please. Houston, we've had a problem.
This is UFO Classified, live every Friday night, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. The truth is out there, just waiting to be discovered.
And now, if you will, accompany me on a journey to the future.
For more information on the host of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes, upcoming guests, as well as links to the past shows,
visit her website at UFOclassified.com.
UFO Classified.
UFO Classified.
This is KCOR Las Vegas, home of the Digital Radio Network, broadcasting from a shack just south of Area 51.
Wait, that doesn't exist.
This is the KCOR Digital Radio Network. Now for the news.
The disc landed at a ranch at Corona, New Mexico. The rancher turned it over to the Air Force. Rancher W.W. Brazil was the man who discovered the saucer.
What I thought was a star began coming in my direction at a very rapid rate of speed.
The unidentified object, which some sources thought might be a blimp, moved slowly down the Pacific coast from Santa Monica and disappeared south of Long Beach.
I saw a UFO, and it went down the river, turned right at the United Nations, turned left, and then down the river.
UFO Classified.
UFO Classified.
No more plausible deniability. Fact, fiction, or the truth. You decide. And now, the new voice of the high desert, the hostess of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes.
Welcome back to the second half of UFO Classified. I'm Erica Lukes. You can find me on UFO Classified on Facebook. Also go to UFOclassified.com or ericalukes.com. I'm trying to, in my free time, which clearly is not just, I don't have enough time in the day, but trying to work on both of the websites and getting information out. And I'm also, my big baby, my love is historical preservation. Right now, I want to just throw this out there and give you guys something to think about. But right now, we are losing a lot of important research, and people are looking to certain organizations here or abroad to donate their holdings, and that information is on the verge of being lost forever. And we can't have that, because once we lose all of the research, all of this information, then it will be very, very easy for specific factions to move in and try to steer the narrative in their direction. So if you know anybody that has research and they're going to toss it or they want to donate it, please make sure that you reach out not only to myself but to people like Barry Greenwood and Jan Aldrich. We want to very desperately keep information that is specific to the United States in the United States and make it accessible for all of us to use. This is critical. So you can get in touch with me or Barry or Jan. We need to do this together. This is a very important time for all of us. I am here tonight with two incredible women. I'm here with Linda Miller Costa, who was on the first hour, who has a BA in psychology from Case Western Reserve University and a library science master's from the University of Maryland. And after a career in scientific research and publishing in Washington, D.C., she's currently residing at Lemoyne College Library in Syracuse. She is co-author of the UFO Sightings Desk Reference, United States of America, 2001 to 2015. Her partner and co-author is Cheryl Costa, who was a two-time service military veteran, a retired aerospace security engineer, and a published playwright. She has had a lifelong interest in UFOs. She's been on the show before. From 1998 to 2001, she hosted the X Factor talk radio program in Washington, D.C., covering UFOs, paranormal topics. In 2013, she began writing New York Skies, a weekly newspaper blog for the SyracuseNewTimes.com, and you can go there to read all of her work. They both do a lot of presentations. They are frank and funny and theatrical and clearly clearly super spicy, and I'm thinking I'm digging that. So it's great to find people that have the same attitudes in all of this. So welcome both of you to the show. And Cheryl, what trouble have you been up to?
Oh, me?
I know.
We're actually running on a quick struggle here. We're trying to finish the cleanup on the database with city spellings and county assignments. We're doing a last good effort to clean up all the mistakes between the spelling errors on the city names has been pretty much corrected. The problem is getting them associated with the proper county for them, and we've got a technique going. I did 18,000 today, so if I keep up at it, 18,000 a day, I can finish this up in about 8 to 9 days. And that will give us the golden database, and at that point we'll be able to start working on our new book.
Well, you two are always doing something, and like I was saying on the break, I would love to just come over and hang out with you and watch Game of Thrones and drink a glass of wine and talk about UFOs.
Just one glass?
Okay, well, who am I kidding? I was trying to, keep my on-air persona, on the down low there, but But that I don't know. It would be so much. Yeah, it would be fun. I can't wait to hang out with both of you. And so you are the mother. Both of you are the mothers of UFO statistics, and that is important. And it is something that, again, looking at all the data is. I mean, it's not a. It is a difficult task. And it would put most people to sleep, but it is the most important thing that we can do. And so for both of you to have done this really speaks volumes about your willingness to dive in there and commit and do things that need to be done. So I want to commend both of you, and I want to, Cheryl, let's get this out of the way, because it is, people say, and I think maybe, a long time ago you made a comment about your support of the Billy Meyer case. And that caused a bit of, of people wondering why you would choose to do that, because the Billy Meyer case is very controversial, and most people, I don't know it's not something anyway. So give us your brief comments on that.
Well, okay. Presently, I think the pro-Billy group and the con-Billy group these two camps, they both have a lot to say, and for the most part, they both make a good case from each of their perspectives. And to be honest with you, I respect them both. They both are very solid in what they believe on this. But the thing I got to get across to people was my flirtation really with Billy Meyer was in the late 1980s, early 1990s, to be honest with you, and so. Billy Meyer is not really on my radar, and he won't be. He's not even in my universe of interest. I research 21st century UFO statistics, and that's what consumes my time. I'll give an example. We were just at the Pine Bush Festival. I was speaking down there. Linda and I drove down on last Friday afternoon to spend the weekend at the UFO Festival there. And we'd had our very, very difficult day, Saturday. You're all day at the festival. You're talking to people. You're going around to the booths and everything. And then we have that after-hours event. We go and give our presentations. There were some top guys there. And I got back to the room. We finished watching. We watched a movie on television, and we went to bed. And the next morning, we got up, and there was a notebook in our bathroom. And I had gotten up about 1:30 in the morning and wrote out a process procedure for how to analyze the data a certain way, to do something new called a forensics cluster report. And I'm sitting here looking at it the next morning in the bathroom saying, I did that in the middle of the night, this stuff processes in the back of your head. So worrying about things like Billy Meyer, the Meyer situation, and whether he was right, whether he was wrong, whether the information's bogus or real, it's not on my radar. It really hasn't been.
Okay, and thank you for clarifying that. I know this is, that's one of those cases that is just, there are no, there's no middle ground. And so I think people who have really looked into this and see some of the questions that have been raised that are important questions. I think they wonder, and I don't want to see that or any, what you questioning things or making comments. I don't want that to affect the important work that you've done, as you know, because that should be the focus. That is the most important thing. And we're all going to make mistakes or do things in not that I'm saying, you know what I'm saying. Yep. I just think that this is a really slippery slope, and so I thank you for addressing that. And so let's get back to the statistics. And I was mentioning in the first hour, when when Linda was talking about the bodies of water and where these occurrences, where these sightings were taking place, the clusters, what else can you add to that as far as what you were finding when you were looking at the data?
Well, two things came up. I did an article for New York State. Remember, we crunched this data for New York because I'm a journalist and I had to have something to write about. And at one point, we went down the St. Lawrence Seaway at the top of New York State, and all the way across Lake Ontario, through the Niagara frontier and out into Lake Erie. And that's where the St. Lawrence Seaway ends. And I found that there was 19, if you counted the counties along that seaway, it was 19% of the sightings in New York State. And then we went over and did the did the Hudson Valley, and that turned out to be 32% of the sightings in New York State. And when you put it both together, it was like 52% of the sightings in New York State. Now, that's a big deal. These are very two narrow tracts of waterway, and we found that to be very intriguing. Well, about right after the book came out, I was doing a radio show one night, and I had the book open in my lap, and I never really looked at this chart really close. We took census maps, and we put little boxes and pointers pointing to each of the states on the different census regions, and so you could see the states where they are in the context, And that was the first time I was sitting there during a commercial break, and I noticed that all the states that were touching the Great Lakes had their sightings in the many thousands, 5,000 sightings during the 15-year period of the book, but moved 2 states away, and the numbers fell into the low hundreds. And that rather intrigued me. Florida is mostly surrounded by water. It's the number 2 state in the country for sightings. California has 9 lines of it covers 9 lines of latitude, that much surface area across the Pacific, and it is the number 1 state. A lot of people try to say, "Oh, it's about their population." Well, we did an experiment. We took the East Coast and we took the same lines of latitude, and of course that's coastal area. We tried to also do the idea of rough amount of land size and all that kind of thing. Ended up, we actually had more population in our East Coast pseudo-California than we did with California, like 12 or 15 million more people. And they actually had far less sightings than did California. So California does have something interesting going on, and I don't think it's necessarily related just to population, and it's not related to test aircraft and all this stuff. There's something else going on. Is it a base out there by Catalina Island? Who knows? We don't know what it is, but there's something special out there about California. And you must remember, Los Angeles County is the one county in the United States that's number 1. It has more UFO sightings logged for it than reported from Los Angeles County, not the city, but the county, than 40 individual states. Now, there's something going on there. Los Angeles has had UFO sightings since the 1880s, up and down, strange lights flying up and down the valleys and canyons. So there's something special about California, and population doesn't cut it.
And so where else, and I want to be a little selfish here, tell me about Utah.
Okay, Utah. Okay. One thing I do know about Utah, there is a little bit of a clustering around Great Salt Lake. I don't remember the exact ranking of it, but in the last 18 years, they've only racked up 1,500 sightings for the 1,515 sightings for the whole 18-year period. That's it.
Isn't that incredible? And I think that's really, really telling in some regard, because when I was state director for MUFON, I mean, it was like pulling teeth to get sightings reports, to get people to put this in the MUFON database. And I think the thing that was also interesting too is because we do so much, and we've got Dugway and we've got Hill Air Force Base, and there's so much testing going on here that maybe there is a need for the powers that be to control the information that's coming in. It's a thought, but that has always perplexed me.
Well, I did a little bit of a study. We keep hearing at UFO conferences is like 1 in 10 people report what they see. Well, that's all fine and good, but that is usually done at something like a college lecture about UFOs or at a major UFO convention when you're preaching to the freaking choir. Okay. When you figure, 320 million people, okay, 245 million are adults, okay. Now you back that number back against an average of around 12,000 sightings. It's lesser now, but back in a peak about 5 years ago, it was around 14,000 sightings a year. Okay, that doesn't add up to 1 in 10 people. Okay, it doesn't. It came out to something like 1 in 25,000 people reports what they see. Okay, is what it seemed to be. That's all I can tell you. People don't like that answer. They keep saying, no, it's 1 in 10. These scientists prove that. And I said, well, based on what? Okay, it's going out and talking to people, go out and talking to your patients in the waiting room. I've heard stories like that where doctors went out and asked her, or had their nurse go out there and ask them if they'd seen a UFO, and like 1 in 10 people had said they'd seen one, but did they report it? No, it was only one. It doesn't work that way. But if you go back against the population, people are only reporting about 15,000 a year, and these days only around 7,000 or 8,000. We just don't have that many people reporting them, or they're reporting them to the wrong place. I'll give you an example. We've had a big wave since last Christmas in the Hudson Valley. People are saying it's a wave of UFO sightings on the scale of what it was in the 80s. Are the people reporting them to MUFON and Newfork? Not really, but they are calling up their local investigators, and I know one woman had 30 calls in 1 week. Okay? So if they don't put them in those databases, we can't count them.
And I would dare say that there might be a database that's a little bit more accessible, at least to the public. So, and that's, for me, it's like where do you go to report something and that truly is getting the information out to the public so researchers like yourself can get the data?
This is Linda. This actually touches on one of my motivations for doing this book. Those of you who have seen the book, it's sort of laid out so it looks like a government report. I told Cheryl that one of the reasons I wanted to do this book is that, there are institutions that collect data. They're called government agencies, like the Census Department. And they're the ones who should be collecting this data. It shouldn't be, a couple voluntary organizations. They should be embarrassed and ashamed that they're not doing their job of serving the citizens of this country by collecting the data that affects their lives, And I really wanted personally to embarrass the people at these agencies and people that are involved in collecting data and doing statistical analysis, because they know that while we did as good a job as we could, we shouldn't be putting this out. This should be put out by a respected, authoritative, scientifically authoritative institution like a university or the National Academy of Sciences or the Census Department. And the fact that we're doing it out of our apartment in Syracuse, New York, is just shameful from a scientific standpoint.
Especially when you consider the ramifications of what the UFOs represent.
Yeah.
Life from another dimension or life from another world.
And so how do you, because obviously, since 1947, there's been Kenneth Arnold, there's been a need for different governments to control the narrative or to insert people into the community, spies in different countries, to try to get information on who's leaking what and what top secret aircraft is flying over here or there. And so it's a big spy game, and that's unfortunate. And so how do we ever separate that? How do we know when information is coming out now from different factions of the Pentagon? Is this really disclosure, or is this another push to steer the narrative? How are we ever going to freaking know what's going on?
Well, again, Erica, as I was saying, that it's follow the money. In D.C., it's always follow the money because the money and the power are inextricably linked. And, the people that know are the military-industrial complex and, the Pentagon and the people that can make money off of this information. Maybe we do have ships. Well, that's being exploited for whatever they can reverse engineer it. Maybe they do have contacts with the aliens in the ET. Well, any information they get from them about what they're up to or what their resources are, again, that's, it can be exploited for monetary gain and power gain. So whether we'll actually, all we can do, we consider this ground level disclosure. All we can do is to try to push people and to try to get this out here and try to make more people aware that they have a right to ask these questions.
We did something at the Pine Bush event. The audiovisual team was late getting there. So when we were supposed to start speaking, there was no projector, no microphones, nothing. And we were starting to have a pretty unruly crowd because it was supposed to start. So I talked to the director and I said, look, Linda and I were going to go do a little pre-show to kind of calm people down. So we got up in front of them and Linda took the lead. Tell them what you did.
Well, one of the things we've observed at UFO conventions is that, people want to tell their experiences. So it's like, okay, we've got a town hall here. I mean, it was literally in the civic center of Pine Bush, which is pretty funny. And this is so. All right, let's do a town hall. And so I said, all right, here is your chance to tell us what you've seen. Have you seen an UFO? And people got up and talked, and it was great because then after they were talking to each other, and it really caused everybody to start feeling more psychologically comfortable with sharing their experiences.
It started with one or two, and then after those one or two shared, 3 or 4 or more, and then the next thing you know, we saw six or seven hands up, and it snowballed.
And isn't that incredible? Because at the end of the day, it's like when I'm at a conference or speaking, that's the most important thing for me, is to connect with the people that are there. Because it's not about me, and it's just like both of you know, it's not about you or your ego. It's about the phenomenon and the human experience. And I really like that. That makes people feel important and it makes people feel heard. And that's very cool. I wish I could have been there.
One of the things that I tell my students at the library when I'm training them to shelve books or take care of the books, I says, remember that each of these volumes is some human brain that made the commitment to write this thing and put out that information. Well, it's the same thing with our UFO sightings, the 129,000 sightings. These are 129,000 people that overcome their concern about being made fun of or getting in trouble or whatever, and stepped up and reported what they've seen. And that's something to be respected and lauded, and that's another reason why these statistics are important, is that this is a way to make these people heard, that they care about this.
Thank you. I love that. That is really critical. And I had, last week on my show, I had three people who had pretty significant sightings that had never come forward before. And that was really special to me and special to my listeners, because that at the end of the day, we're all here. I believe, most of us are here because something has touched our lives and we don't know what it is. And we're looking to a community, or we're looking for answers somewhere out there, and they're really hard to find. So when we can find a support system, that's great. So I'm Erica Lukes. I'm here with Linda Miller Costa and Cheryl Costa. We will be right back.
Stand by.
This is UFO Classified with Erica Lukes.
Erica Lukes.
The phone lines are open now at 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio. More UFO Classified.
UFO Classified
with Erica Lukes on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. After this.
Here's what happened on the last episode of Three Guys, No Ties.
Oh, by the way.
Yes.
Next week, Taylor Lyons is going to be on the show. If you're not familiar with her, she's a hollow actress, been at it for quite a while now. She's got an accolade of credits behind her, been in all kinds of stuff.
Cool.
So, yeah, but she's excited.
She wants to be here.
Dave Moore wants to talk to her. He talks, apparently he's on email with her all the time.
Is he going to wake up?
I actually sent her an email.
Is he going to be up during the show?
Nah.
Too bad.
Three Guys, No Ties. Wednesday nights, 7 to 9 Pacific on the KCOR Digital Radio Network.
Vegas, baby!
Vegas' #1 source for talk and new music.
How cool is that?
1 million miles till midnight. A story of timelines, artificial worlds, simulated races, and the galactic imprint, and the destiny of a blue world called Earth. 1 Million Miles Till Midnight, written by Solaris Blue Raven, is a journey through the mind's eye which allows the reader to surf a wave of technological and multidimensional intellect, revealing a bridge between conscious design and the truth. A multidimensional bleed-through awakens the world of artificial intelligence to set sail into the frontiers of a vast multiverse, morphing planets and terraforming ascended worlds beyond the linear programs of a fated race. 1 Million Miles Till Midnight will awaken, inspire, prepare, and enlighten one to the many multidimensional states of consciousness and worlds we reside in. With every cell and atom, we are this truth and multiverse. 1 Million Miles Till Midnight, written by Solaris Blue Raven. Available now at Amazon.com. Don't wait. Get your copy today.
There is a world outside that which we live in. A realm where fact and fiction collide. The Paradigm Matrix. The Paradigm Matrix. Hosted by Willie Miranda. Every Friday night at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern.
The Matrix is everywhere. It is all around us. Even now, in this very room.
The 1-hour show that will surely leave you hanging on the edge of the rabbit hole. The Paradigm Matrix explores a universe of topics from UFOs, cryptozoology, conspiracies, as well as all things paranormal.
Enter a world of the twisted and deformed.
Friday night, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. The Paradigm Matrix. Exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network, where fact and fiction collide.
1, 2, 3, 4!
To the KCOR Digital Radio Network.
I love the way it sounds. Love the music. I listen all day.
The future of radio is here and now.
You're listening to UFO Classified with Erica Lukes, where the truth isn't hidden beneath the black lines of a Sharpie.
That's the craziest thing I've ever heard.
To be on with Erica, call 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio.
Radio contact.
Share your thoughts on the show on Twitter by using hashtag KCOR. Or head over to the live chats at KCORradio.com.
The audience goes nuts!
And now, your host of UFO Classified.
Are you ready?
Erica Lukes. Erica Lukes.
Welcome back to the last segment of UFO Classified. I hope that all of you are getting ready to have a fun Memorial Day weekend. I am going to attempt to spend Monday not doing UFO research, but I'm sure that's not going to happen because I am completely hooked, and there are many things going on right now that are important. If you could see the stack of research on my desk, which it actually moves out to the coffee table and into the bedroom. There are a lot of things I've been working on for years that have not seen the light of day, and I look forward to getting that out there. I am writing a book which will be out this October. My co-author is Gordon Lohr, who has been on my show many times. Gordon Lohr was at NICAP back in the 60s, a very important person. He has written several books, and he also was there to see the infiltration by the CIA into NICAP and then the eventual demise of the organization. And so it has been fun to form a friendship with him. I will be looking forward to meeting him in LA in a week and a half. That will be very cool, along with Jan Aldrich and Tom Tulane. Should be fun to see some of the most important people in the field and to obviously document that and share that with you. So you can go to UFO Classified, my Facebook page. You can find me on Instagram. I'll be sharing pictures and specific portions of our time together. It will be very, very pivotal and important. I am here tonight with two brave women who have stood up against a lot and have done remarkable things with their lives, not just in UFO research or ufology, but have accomplished a great deal outside of ufology. Linda Costa is here with her beautiful partner, Cheryl, first of all, I'm just so excited to get to know you. And like I've said a million times before, I can't wait to hang out with you and just sit and pick your brain and talk and then go through your beautiful contribution, the UFO Sightings Desk Reference, which you can find on Amazon. But I would encourage people to get that and then start asking questions and look at what the data is telling you. So anyway, welcome back to the show for our last segment. And we were talking about some of the things that you were finding and things that are taking place right now and Pine Bush. So Cheryl, can you continue on that note, and then we'll find some other things to talk about, because I've got a couple more questions I want to ask you too about some of the things you've experienced.
Okay, well, Pine Bush, that's the big story there. Is there seems to be a wave uptick. Being at this last festival, I had a chance to talk to a lot of local researchers, and I'm hearing some interesting stories. The problem is that I'm not seeing it showing up in the National UFO Reporting Center is probably about 70% of the data. And I've been tracking, they update every 2 weeks, and I've been kind of tracking it since Christmas. And I'm seeing an uptick in there, but I'm not seeing the volume of reporting that is representative of what these other local researchers are hearing. And that's the darn shame of it, because it'd be nice to be able to track that. People were telling me it's on the score of, or on the level of what they saw in the 70s and 80s, the night siege kind of stuff. So that's about all I can tell you.
Okay,
and it's a wonderful festival. It really is.
Oh, that's so cool. And I want to ask you about the data, because you've got New Fork, and that is Peter Davenport. And so there aren't a lot of, it's a very cut and dried kind of database. Then you have the MUFON database. How do they compare, and what are the differences?
Well, okay. First thing is that the New Fork data is up there in HTML. And you can bring it down by year. You can bring it down by state, and it's relatively easy to download. You can do it through Excel, and it's not very messy. Now, it still has to be cleaned up considerably, but it can be done. And the process we did back in 2016 when we were putting the book together took us many, many months. Okay. I cleaned up a refresh on the data in a couple of weeks, because we know what we're doing now. We have a written procedure for how to do these things. The MUFON data, the trick there is because they don't, and I've had a couple of long talks with a couple of their board members in recent months and said, look, you guys need to start doing the same thing that New Fork does. At least put your raw data out on the web in an HTML format and just let people do what they do with it, okay? Instead of people have to come begging and groveling for the information. And that's the transparency problem we're having with the MUFON organization. Now, MUFON, if you talk to their membership, they say they think they're the only game in town, but they're only about 40% of the data. Okay, when we put them together, depends upon the state. And there's one state, it was like 80% Peter Davenport stuff and 20% MUFON. So it is to use. When I see these people grab National UFO Reporting Center data and then put a whole bunch of charts out there, next thing you know, usually there's nobody's name on the chart. If you see a lot of those out there and graphs and things, the data is skewed. New Fork is skewed to one part of the country. MUFON kind of balances it out. So you're not getting the whole picture if you don't have both databases. And that's the shame of it. Now, MUFON is also dominant in 3 states. Texas is one of them. I don't remember the other 2 off the top of my head. I think Michigan's the other one of the other 2. But it goes back. That goes back to the early days of MUFON and things like that. So there's some historic reasons for that. But I think one of the best things that MUFON could do is stop worrying about vetting everything before anybody gets to see it. They should be putting out the raw data on their website and then saving and encouraging people to, if they're going to join to see the vetted data. and the research data. But right now they make everybody join to even have access to CMS. And of course, CMS that can't even hold. I've had more investigators you shake a stick at come to me and say, how do I make CMS do what you guys are doing? And I say, you can't.
Isn't that interesting? I mean, and I think to me, because I was state director, there were lots of times when I would go in there to try to do research just for my own education, and I still didn't have access to things. And it's like, okay, how can we ever learn? You know, if we don't have access to all of this, why are there so many tiers and levels, and where is it going? And that's one thing I appreciate about, New Fork, is you can get in there and you can have access to that. And it's not a question of whether you're a member or not, or, what, all of that. So that is interesting. When did you approach Peter or MUFON headquarters with regard to that, and how did they react when you did that?
No, I didn't. I just downloaded Peter's data. I mean, it was right there. It's hanging right out there. So I just turned on. In fact, we decided to do it at the end of 2015. So quite literally on the morning of January 1st, 2016, I got up, got a cup of coffee, and you wouldn't believe the bandwidth availability on New Year's Day morning. And went into Excel, and there's a feature in Excel for different data formats that you can import, and HTML is one of them. And I had it all downloaded in about 2 hours. I do it by individual states, but I had it all downloaded in about 2 hours. Over a couple of weeks, I had to go ahead and start merging all together in one spreadsheet and start cleaning up all the. There have been a few hacker incursions that wrecked a few records here and there. MUFON, on the other hand, I made requests to lesser people in the business that were supposedly the people to go to, and they started asking me for my project plan and what I was going to do with the data. I got the 9 rounds, and Linda put a stop to it. You want to tell them that we got she's an executive, not me. She got on the phone with them,
Yeah, well, I talked to what was
Powell,
Robert Powell.
Yeah,
Robert Powell, and explained one of the concerns they had was that we wanted access to the personal information, who wrote the record, et cetera. And as Cheryl says, that's the first thing that we strip out. We're not interested in the anecdotal type. We're just interested in the what, where, and, what shape it was, et cetera. And once I assured him that, how we were going to use it. But yeah, they were asking us what our business plan was, what our budget was, where were we going to publish it. They wanted approval of the report before it was published. And it's I've worked in the scientific publishing enough to know, and like I said, the scientific community, it's no, that's not the way science is done. So
perch and spin.
Yeah. So
we really didn't care.
But he was very nice.
I had a file in 20 minutes after she got done talking to him.
So I convinced him that we're just trying to do scientific research. And
now that's the first time.
Yeah.
Now, after the book came out, actually about a week before the book came out, I got a frantic call from Jan Hardison. And he said, "Oh my God, you're going to put on all people's personal data." And I said, "No, we don't even have that information." I said, "All we did was what, when, and where, what shape, and what time, that kind of thing. And we organized it, and we mixed it with MUFON or New Fork data, and that's it. And some pivot tables. So what's the problem?" "Oh, okay." Now, after the book came out, I do know for a fact he has a copy of that book on his desk. And I also know for a fact, the next time I needed an updated data, I simply called him up and said, "I need this information extracted for these years," essentially the last 3 years. And he said, "You're basically going to do what you did last time." I said, "Yeah." He said, "Okay." And his database guy got in touch with me a couple of days later, and I got my CSV file, and that's all I needed. So it's been much easier since the book came out. The first book came out.
That's great. And that's important. And I think, a nonprofit organization who has been, working under the idea that it's the benefit for mankind, womankind, humankind. I think that data should be available to the public, and I'm really happy that you've done so much to do that. And so I want to ask you, because you've got a little bit of time before the show closes, but what type of, if any, interference have you guys received specifically when you started the project, and then during a lot of that? Because I would dare say I've received some interference, and it is quite interesting. Was that the case for you because you were doing something that was so groundbreaking?
Well, we were properly paranoid to a certain extent. We had backup, copies of the database, and had one at work, and trusted one to somebody else.
We had about 3 or 4 copies on thumb drives. Every weekend, we would burn a copy onto a thumb drive, and it went to a different person away from our home. And they had them in a sealed envelope, and then we would cycle back with the oldest one back to and burned a new version on it. We got very paranoid towards the last 2 or 3 months.
Remember, we had one time we had the black SUV with the tinted windows was sitting across the street from our house for a while, So that got us a little nervous, but generally nobody's really bothered.
We did have the incident with our alarm system got messed with.
Yeah.
And we never did get an adequate explanation for that. But that made us very paranoid about it. And the computer went with us when we went on trips. And thumb drives were passed out to people at work and things like this to keep in their desk just in case.
I think one of the things that you learn as you get older, and especially as a woman, is that, you get this certain age that people assume that you're not dangerous anymore and couldn't possibly be up to anything. I guess it's, like the greatest thing about becoming an old lady is that this is when you want to commit crimes because they'll never suspect
we
you.
are invisible.
Yeah, so, I think the fact that who we were, et cetera, and, that's how we get treated by the UFO community.
Right.
So they're just 2 little old ladies and pretty strange ones at that. So.
Well, the other thing for me was, the reason I was putting the copies off thing, if the house had burnt down or something, we would have lost everything. And not even just the fear of having somebody mess us up or steal our only copy or something. I worked in the data security field, and we did I was functioning within the boundaries of a disaster recovery. Okay, this was a very, very old discipline for me of making sure there were off-site copies available. So that's where part of that was coming from. Okay, working in corporate security for 20 years, I had T-shirts that said "Paranoia protects." So.
And honestly, I mean that cannot be overstated. And I again, in the past 24 hours, I've had some very interesting situations going on in my own world. And so, when you start doing things, you're for whatever reason, you're on the radar, and that's great. But I think it is important now, especially in the world that we're living, where it is, hackers are a dime a dozen. It is really true. And we are not, we give, and this is one thing I've warned some of my friends about. It's like, stop sending out emails where you're including 50 people on the email list. Don't include me in that. I don't want to be a part of it. Don't put me out there, and don't send me downloads on Facebook. there's so many ways that people don't understand things could take place, and your security could be compromised.
Well, that's one of the reasons that we put the book out as a paper item, is that, we've had people, well, why didn't you, put it out electronic? And it's like, yeah, so you can steal it, and besides that, as a librarian, I know that sometimes paper is more useful. These kind of tables, et cetera, it's very hard to manipulate them when you're dealing with files on a computer, where a book, if you know the right book to pick up and where to look, you can find information much quicker. That's why we call it a desk reference, that statistical data especially, sometimes it's better to have it laid out in a form that can be more accessible as in paper. But we've also had people, especially when the New York Times article first came out, we had a couple researchers from universities, et cetera. It's like, well, can you just give me a copy of your database? I want to do some research. And it's like, no, if you want to us to look up particular statistics for you, we'll run a limited report. We'd be happy to do that. But for some reason, it was like, well, you're just a couple of stupid women. You don't know any better. If I just ask for it, you'll give it to us.
We got a lot of that.
Yeah.
And our attorney just absolutely said no, because people, heck, we had a lot of people within MUFON, some of the research guys in MUFON come to us and say, well, give us your database. No, I can't. You can go get the raw data from those sources like we did. Okay. Why can't you give it to us? Because you've got it all cleaned up and everything. He said, well, that's part of it. That was our effort. But the other effort is we've built algorithms into the database now. And our attorney says that's highly proprietary information. That's the stuff Google and Amazon guard with their lives, And some of the data we're generating is not from raw data. It's built because we've built algorithms in to interpret the data certain ways. And that's the proprietary secret sauce, as they say.
And we're not giving it away.
No, well, you know what? And that's and I understand that you have both worked very, very hard for that. And I think that it's, we're at that point where we should expect for all of the work that we do that we have people that are working with us to support us. And if somebody's willing to do that work and the other person that reaches out to you is willing to share, there's a mutual benefit there, and that is going to lead us forward. But when you've got people that are just trying to glom onto things and then get their name out there, or, all of these things that really it's not a respectable thing. And so I commend you for having that integrity to say, you know what, my work is worth a lot, and we should be respectful of that. So maybe some of these people that are reaching out could send a message to Jan Harzan or some of the people at MUFON headquarters and say, hey, why don't you share with us?
Well, I think one of the things that as a librarian, as I look at it, is that ufology is at the place that like environmental studies was 40 or 50 years ago. When I started working in the environmental field, I had a psychology degree, the people that worked at the academy in the field, they had physics degrees or biology degrees. There was no environmental science degree. It didn't exist. I read a chemical library and I had a psychology degree, so, and I think ufology, because it's not supported by academia yet, it's in the same place. You have somebody like, Dr. Friedman, who was a physicist, but a lot of us are coming into it. We're citizen scientists. We're like Charles Fort. We're people that are interested in something and are doing the research on our own and supporting it with our own resources. And, but the field has gotten to the point is that we need to stop telling stories and we need to start acting like real researchers. We should have, scholarly journals. We should have conferences that seriously talk about this. And I think there was one that I heard about.
Alabama.
But
Rich Hoffman.
So, there is some of that going on, but it's going to be if we want to be taken seriously, we have to take ourselves seriously, and we shouldn't be having petty squabbles and gossiping, and that we need to really focus on the prize, which is getting the information.
One of the other issues is that so many people in the UFO community, I've had people attack me. Where's your 25 best case studies? I don't have case studies. We don't have case studies. We have only a certain portion of the data that we're analyzing statistically. We don't care about case studies. And there's this whole narrow tunnel vision attitude that the only UFO research that has any validity is case study analysis and field investigation. And I catch all kinds of crap because I'm not a person out there tramping around in the barbed wire and the cow patties investigating a UFO. I'm quite content crawling through the numbers on a rainy afternoon. Okay. And that's where we're finding stuff. I was telling you earlier, and I know we're running out of time here. I've developed a thing called a year by day forensic study. And I'm finding spikes of UFOs on a particular 1 day window kind of thing. where your average, like give you in a typical year, on a daily basis, there's only about 25, maybe 20 UFO sightings reported on any particular one day. And then suddenly you're looking along at a line and there's this spike that goes up 60 to 100 sightings. Well, we have a way of breaking that down now. In fact, that's that process procedure I wrote at 1:30 in the morning in Pine Bush, where I can break it down. I can tell you what states they were clustered in, what counties they were clustered in, and what cities in those counties that were clustered in. Okay? And we had some pretty wild stuff happening in 2008, in 2009. And did MUFON tell us about that with their monthly evaluations of how they cleared their reports? No, they did. They probably didn't even see it, other than maybe it was a heavier than usual month. That's about all they saw. Nobody's looking at it from a different direction except Linda and myself.
And I love that. And this is important. And I'm so happy to have both of you on my show tonight. Linda, like I said, I'm sad that you have a day job. And that, we haven't been able to just sit around and talk for, hours on end. But I appreciate your knowledge and your skill set. And I think that what both of you have done, well, I know what both of you have done is important to us moving forward. So I look forward to meeting you in person and hanging out. And I will make sure that people know where to get your book, which is Amazon. And so when will the new book be out? Do you have a date?
Well, okay. If we printed off the whole book the way we'd like to display the data now, it would be 2,700 pages. That's 2 Oxford unabridged dictionaries. And that won't work. So what we're going to do is we're going to print out a full book on every single state as a print-on-demand book. And then we're going to do a compilation of analysis books to support 50 states worth of books.
And I asked after the 70 or 60 or 70 books are out, can I rest?
That's when the two of us are going to call that our magnum opus, and we're going to retire.
Why do I doubt that? I mean, I don't know. I'm just saying. I think you ladies you're not going anywhere. And so I'm excited, and I'm excited to get Utah. Thank you so much for being here. Linda Miller Costa and Cheryl Costa. It is always a pleasure to have strong, intelligent women on the show. I'm Erica Lukes. Stick around for a great night on KCOR. Willie Miranda is coming up next. Have a safe Memorial Day weekend, and we'll catch you next Friday.
Listen very carefully.
This is Houston. Say again, please. Houston, we've had a problem.
This is UFO Classified, live every Friday night, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. The truth is out there, just waiting to be discovered.
And now, if you will, accompany me on a journey to the future.
For more information on the host of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes, upcoming guests, as well as links to the past shows,
visit her website at ufoclassified.com.
UFO Classified.
UFO Classified.
This is KCOR Las Vegas, home of the Digital Radio Network, broadcast.